I took some pictures of Georgia. She was dancing with her own shadow on the beach, and I put my phone down. Georgia took her little skirt off to go swimming, and then the last two words Georgia said were "Mama, Mama," the last one being quite in distress, and she collapsed. I didn't know what was happening, but then we later find out that Georgia had suffered a ruptured brain aneurysm, and they did all the tests, but Georgia had already died. She died on Christmas Day.
What an incredibly sad story that is to hear, Ilse. And listening to that as a parent myself, I'm sure many parents listening will struggle to know how you ever come to terms with something like that. But somehow, out of that, the grief of dealing with that situation, you come to start thinking about transplantation. I mean, what brought you to that point of view?
Well, I've always felt very strongly about if something was to happen to me. I've always felt very strongly about donating my organs since I was a child. I can't quite tell you when exactly that happened. I've, of course, never thought I would have to make that decision for my own children. So because you never think that something would happen to your child, I therefore never had this discussion or talk with my husband. I mean, why would I? So, when Georgia was still, she looked very much alive and sleeping and warm and pink, but she was on the breathing machine in bed. Me and myself and my husband James, we talked. I said to James, I need to talk to you about something, and we had to have that discussion when we were in utter shock. Everything was so surreal, and we were still hoping, because she looked so alive and beautiful, that a miracle would happen. But we had to have that talk there and then. One of the things that helped us come to that decision was we were picturing somehow that what if Joshua was going to die too. Joshua is our little boy. He is now 3. Georgia would be 4. What if Joshua was about to die, and we could stop him from dying by accepting a heart, an organ? We would, we wouldn't even hesitate. We then approached the staff at King's College Hospital, and then the ball started rolling. So several phone calls were made to find the appropriate recipients, etc., which of course gives us lots of time with Georgia to still, lay next to her, hold her hand, talk to her. It was the hardest decision of my life I'll ever have to make, because you think, it's never going to happen to you, but it did. It happened to our little girl, it happened to us, it happened to our family, and that's why I'm very strongly I feel very strongly that it would be such a help if people would think about it, consider it, talk about it with their loved ones in advance, prior a nightmare, somebody dying in your family, really. If you at least have that talk prior, the decision to take that step when you're at the hospital bed is just that little bit less. And then we pretty much stayed with Georgia all the way until the theatre room. We then were told, the staff were exceptional. They kept telling us what to expect and, explanations of what was going to happen. And then just prior the theatre room, for Georgia to have the operations, we had to turn off her life support. We were told we would have 15 minutes to, hold Georgia, cuddle Georgia, and then Georgia was carried into the theatre room. But we were always told, and I think this is also quite important because I didn't know that, I could have changed my mind, my husband could have changed his mind at any second. So even right at the last minute, even though having said we want to donate Georgia's organs, we've signed all the paperwork, we could have said, actually it's too painful, it's too hard, we don't want to go through with it. And it's something that I think is also quite important people know, So the strength we had from saying goodbye to Georgia just before the theatre room was we knew that 2 children were waiting that night to have the operation. So we knew that that same night Georgia was going to save 2 other lives, and it gave us such an inner strength, which I cannot explain how we had that, but it did give us an immense strength to hold her right at the end and to be able to let her go into the operation room. And I, you know, it was a powerful strength to be able to say goodbye to Georgia, knowing that, you know, children out there are now living a very happy life because of your beautiful daughter. But you know, it was the toughest and very, very heartbreaking decision, but it was undoubtedly, definitely the right decision, definitely. You know, because being in shock and disbelief, you know, maybe somebody can save your daughter. The harsh reality was Georgia was dead. There was nothing anybody could do. And, you know, it's visualizing what happens after that. When you get home, when your child is gone and all you have is memories, you know, it's kind of putting yourself that little bit of step ahead that, you know, it just gives you strength knowing that, you know, there's parts of Georgia out